Good morning. My name is Lisa Bennett. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm honored to serve as the chair of the governing board here at First Parish in Concord. We are a welcoming Unitarian Universalist congregation gathered in the service of love within and beyond our walls. We welcome all who are gathered in our historic sanctuary and everyone joining by Zoom from the comfort of their home. We welcome you with all the identities you carry, with all the beliefs you hold and don't hold, with all of your questions and all of your doubts. We welcome you with all of the gifts you bear, with all of the burdens you shoulder, and with all of your joy and all of your heartache. If you are visiting or new to the congregation and need assistance during the service, please chat with your online Zoom host or see one of our ushers at the rear of the sanctuary. The parlor downstairs serves as our wiggle room, where young ones can play accompanied by their adult caregivers while the service streams on a large screen. Immediately after the service, we invite you to stay for coffee hour in the parish hall, where members of the welcoming and membership team will be available to answer questions and help you get connected. As your governing board rep for the morning, I will be available for questions and conversation as well. Please come say hello. For those who prefer a quiet space to reflect on the themes of the service, you're invited to our worship sharing circle, both on Zoom and in the Brooks Room immediately following the service. First Parish is a lively congregation with many ways to get connected. Please check out the bulletin inserted in the order of service for upcoming opportunities. You'll see that we are seeking Secret Santas to bring holiday cheer to students at the Walden School, as well as volunteers to make our traditional warming bouillon in the cold winter weeks ahead. Welcome once again. To gather and worship is a sacred act, and your pleasant presence among us is a blessing. We are glad and grateful that you are here.
Good morning. My name is Jennifer Johnson. My pronouns are she and her. I'm the lead minister here at First Parish, and it's my pleasure to join Lisa in welcoming you to Sunday worship. This morning, I want to give a special shout out of welcome to the Building Bridges group from our congregation in New London who's visiting with us today. Thank you for being with us. I have one quick programming note that is especially for any families of children in grades kindergarten through 5. The group, the religious education group, has already departed for a field trip at the Rivercrest residence at Newbury Court. If you wish to join them, you are welcome to meet them there, and you are equally welcome to stay for our worship service, either in the sanctuary or downstairs in the wiggle room. It is wonderful to share in worship at this time of year as we embrace the turn into the holiday season with our sanctuary bedecked in greenery. I also understand that yesterday the meeting house was transformed into a magical elves workshop for our children's craft workshop. We're especially fortunate this morning to welcome back the Lincoln Ringers under the direction of Diane Burke. A festive and beautiful musical treat is in store. On this second Sunday of Advent, we turn our attention to the gift of hope, embodied in the ministry of Jesus, who inspired hope with his vision of the coming kingdom of God on earth, a vision of a new world order that would displace entrenched greed, corruption, and empire with an everlasting reign of love, justice, peace, and mercy, a vision that is still coming. Today, many progressive spiritual people, including Unitarian Universalists, call that vision by another name, the beloved community, a global vision of a world society centered around love, belonging, and collective flourishing. It's a vision intimated by the late Joanna Macy, an environmental activist, scholar of Buddhism, and spiritual teacher, in her concept of the great turning that we are going to reflect on today. According to Macy, the Great Turning is a movement already well underway that is shifting the human world order from a doomed economy of industrial growth to a life-sustaining society committed to healing and recovering our world. It's a movement that needs all of us, and to be part of it, we need to practice what Macy deemed active hope. So as we deepen into our sacred hour of worship, let's turn our attention to the gift of hope, the active kind of hope that inspires and moves us to do what we can, what each one of us can, and what we can do together to bring about an emerging, sustainable world order of healing, love, and justice. The beloved community our hearts know is possible. Come, let us worship. On this Advent Sunday, we mark the beginning of worship by lighting the flaming chalice, symbol of our Unitarian Universalist tradition, alongside the first two candles of our Advent wreath, the candles of peace and hope. And I'm so glad that Phineas Clark Talhouni is here to help us out. So after Phineas lights the candles, he will lead us in our unison words of response.
I will light candles this Christmas, candles of joy despite all sadness, candles of hope where despair keeps watch, candles of courage for fears ever present, candles of peace for tempest-tossed days, candles of grace to ease heavy burdens, candles of love to inspire all my living, candles that will burn all year long.
Please rise and body our spirit for our opening hymn, a hymn for the Advent season, number 225, O Come, Emmanuel. While Reverend Amy is out on that field trip with our kindergarten through fifth graders this morning, I'm going to share a time for all ages with you. And because so many of our young people are on that field trip, instead of inviting the young people to come forward and coming down to the floor, I'm going to stay right here to tell my message. And I brought a prop with me to help me tell my story, my message. It's really more of a message than a story. And this is my prop. This is my prop. Can you see it? Any idea what it is? No. Okay. Well, Arkady, our wonderful tech assistant, I think has a slide to help you out. Okay. My message is called Growing Hope, and there's a couple of images there that relate to what I'm holding in my hand. Any guesses? What kind? Pine nuts, that's right. This is a pine nut. I love pine nuts. I think they're delicious, but what are pine nuts? I heard another word. A seed, the seed of what? A pine tree, right? And so that other image is a stone pine tree on the UCLA campus. And a lot of the pine nuts that we eat in cuisine, I learned, are from the stone pine tree. But pine trees in general have seeds like this that come from cones that look more or less like this. So I brought a pine nut, a seed of a pine tree with me. And why did I do that on this morning when we're talking about hope in this season? When we think about pine trees and other kinds of evergreen trees, because we put them in our homes and decorate them for Christmas and cut down their boughs and bedeck our homes and halls with them, that's among the gifts that pine trees give us, give to the whole world. I'm going to ask you to keep shouting back, and I'm going to reflect back to you what I hear from you. I wonder if you can tell me what other gifts pine trees give to the world. Beautiful scents, honey, pollen, the honey, wood for our homes and furniture. Oh my gosh, oxygen, right? Clean air and oxygen, right? They store the carbon for us to help reduce or help us mitigate our climate crisis. Shade and shelter, right? For woodland creatures. A feast for their eyes, they're beautiful. We can keep going. I hear pine trees offer an abundance of gifts to the world. And it all comes from this little seed. That's a lot of gifts to emerge, a lot of possibility for goodness, for joy, for beauty, for delight, for shelter, protection from one tiny little seed. Not to mention how many of us eat them, not just human beings, right? Birds and mammals and other creatures. But it takes certain conditions for a seed like this to germinate and grow. Many seeds never actually become pine trees. The ones that do need a little help, either from us or from other creatures and elements, from animals who bury them, the winds that carry them, and yes, from human beings who intentionally sow and plant them and tend to them so that they can grow into those trees that offer so many gifts. That is a lot of possibility in one little seed. And I think that pine trees and pine nuts teach us that sometimes hope needs our help to grow in the world. That is my message for you this morning. And you'll kind of hear more on that theme later in my sermon. So this morning in religious education for the young people not on the field trip, we have Little RE available in the Mill Dam Nursery School for infants and preschoolers. If you haven't already, caregivers are welcome to bring their children to the lower level. Our coming of age and high school youth are already meeting in the chapel, and our Crossing Paths group of 6th, 7th, and 8th graders are now invited to depart with your leaders and head to the Ripley and Greeley rooms to begin your unit on Christianity and prepare for next week's visit to Trinity Episcopal Church. Let us all please join in singing our young people on their way.
Her pronouns, and I am your minister of congregational care here at First Parish. To start off our time of prayer and contemplation, will you take a couple deep breaths with me this morning? As we breathe deeply, we connect ourselves to the sensing body, and in the doing, hopefully, that soft spot in our hearts. As a community of faith and spirit, we bear witness to each other's sorrows, and we take on the prayers of one another's hearts. This morning, we are saddened to share the news that David Dawson died in hospice care at Carlton Willard Village in Bedford on November 30th at the age of 94. In the last days of his life, David enjoyed visits from his children and the By Your Side singers, which were very important to him. Please hold the Dawson family in your hearts and prayers this week, along with all who knew and loved David. Jim and Lori Pizarris share 2 updates with us this morning. Stephanie Bauman, our niece in Wisconsin, is in rehab after a bacterial infection that impacted her brain. She is out of danger, they say, but now has to relearn muscle coordination, but progress is starting. Their other update, Jean Woodard, another relative in Wisconsin, is in intensive care as she recovers from heart problems. Please join me in holding Jean, Stephanie, Jim, and Lori all in care this week. And finally, Kathy and Dana Booth wish to thank everyone in the congregation for the good wishes, positive energy, and karma leading up to Dana's heart surgery on Tuesday, November 25th. It worked, and recovery will take time, but he is on the mend. And now, would you all join me in the spirit of prayer and meditation? Spirit of life, great mystery holding us all. As we enter this holiday season, may we keep in mind all those who carry heavy hearts this time of year. Those who arrive to this season battling illnesses or injuries of body or mind, and in particular, as World AIDS Day just passed earlier this week, those living with HIV. We keep in mind those who are grieving and whose missing of their loved ones is magnified during the holidays. Those who are separated from their family this year or who live with the daily fear of separation, whether by ice, the forces of estrangement, or other circumstances. And as our nights continue to get longer and our days continue to get colder, may we hold in our prayers those whose access to shelter and a reliable place to warm up or spend the night is unstable. Those who struggle to make ends meet as food assistance programs and insurance subsidies face uncertain futures. May the holiday season this year offer an invitation, not just to exchange gifts and carols and cookies, but to deepen into our theologies of interdependence, to take whatever gifts of the heart we receive around a Christmas tree or menorah or other sacred object out into the world in the forms of solidarity and reciprocity. And if we happen to be someone for whom the holidays hurt this year, to open ourselves up to receive these offerings from others, aware as we are of this most fundamental truth, that we are deeply connected, that what happens to one happens to all, and that throughout our lives we will take turns needing things of each other or having a little bit extra to give. And so may the real gifts of this season be solidarity, compassion, mutual aid, care, love, and our growing interdependence. And now, as you all feel moved, you're invited to type into the chat box if you are online, or share aloud quietly from the pews if you're here in person in the sanctuary, your own joy, sorrow, or prayer that you are holding on your heart this week, or the name of someone that is close to your heart this week. And let us now hold a moment of loving silence for all that has been shared and for the prayers that remain in the quiet corners of our hearts. Amen, and blessed be.
Good morning. I'm Regina Correo, a member of the Immigration Justice Task Force, and I've been asked to talk this morning about the Mabel Center, who is the recipient of the December Share the Plate. For those who don't know about the Mabel Center, it was founded in 2020, and its purpose is to serve those who have the most complex, difficult immigration cases, some of those of which are not being taken or able to be taken by any other organizations. So if you need help in a very difficult situation or speedy help, the Mabel Center is set up for that. The Mabel Center serves over 700 people a year. They primarily work with women, families, children, teenage children, all who are at risk of being detained or deported. And one of their unique features is that they are there at the ready. They're almost like Minutemen, if you will. And they work in that space, a very limited space sometimes of just a couple of hours, to try to get a person who has been detained, I really prefer the word kidnapped because I think it's more accurate, to get them to stay in the state before they're whisked away to another state. That other state is usually in the South. The South has different preferences around how they handle immigration matters. And to stay in New England and to stay in Massachusetts has, of course, many advantages, both legally and in terms of being able to access comfort from family. So we count on the Mabel Center. Paolo counted on them. Paolo is picked up from the streets. He's a dad a father of 6, including a newborn. And within a very short time, he was whisked to Louisiana. The Mabel Center stepped in, and it took a lot, but they were able to get him released back to Massachusetts. In the meanwhile, he had been detained for 2 weeks, and as the sole breadwinner for his family, they had been left without income and resources for that time. Claudia is another example. Claudia is married to a green card holder, and she was reporting to her regularly scheduled ICE appointment. Waiting outside were ICE personnel who, once she had her hearing and was free to go and left the courthouse, swooped in and detained her. They put her in the facility in Burlington, which is an administrative building and is really not geared to house or shelter anyone. The conditions in there have been described as inhumane and cruel. And that's where she was put. It's also not a facility that is set up for women at all. Mabel Center stepped in. They were able to have her transferred to Vermont and then worked to have her freed. Her situation was described as criminally unjust in terms of the reasons why she was picked up and detained. It took over 50 days for her to be released. Unclear how long it would have taken if the Mabel Center hadn't stepped in. So we here at First Parish, especially in the Immigration Justice Task Force, have a very admirable and fond and close relationship with the Mabel Center. A founding board member was our Tony Rodriguez, and in fact, the Mabel Center recently established an annual, I'm not quite sure what to call it, we'll just call it what it is, the Tony Rodriguez Border Project, established in Tony's memory. So I ask your support so that the Mabel Center can continue to represent and fight for those who left their countries coming here seeking safety and justice. Let's help them find it here. Thank you.
from American poet Emily Dickinson. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. I've heard it in the chillest land and on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity it asked a crumb of me. And from the New Testament book of Matthew, chapter 13, verses 31 and 32, he put before them another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed that someone took and sowed in the field. It is the smallest of all the seeds, but when it is grown, it is the greatest of shrubs and becomes a tree, so that the birds of the air come and make nests in its branches.
Thank you for that beauty. My spirit is especially longing for the peace, hope, joy, and love that we anticipate in the season of Advent. I have to say, this year, the waiting has felt hard. And last Wednesday was an especially hard one for my spirit. Not for personal reasons. The day started off like most others, with me curled up on the couch with a mug of hot coffee in hand, scanning the trees and field out my back window for signs of wildlife awakening with the rising sun. Eventually, I opened my laptop to take in the morning's headlines. I didn't even brace myself. I don't need to anymore. I'm generally prepared for the worst. But on Wednesday morning, I was not prepared for the degree of inhumanity that called out from the New York Times headlines. I was not prepared for the horror that lodged in my gut as I read detestable, dehumanizing quote after quote from the tirade that the President of the United States of America unleashed during a cabinet meeting the day before, targeting Somali immigrants in our country, most of whom came here as refugees from the brutality of civil war. New York Times White House correspondents Zolan Kano-Youngs and Sean McCreish called Trump's outburst a xenophobic tirade and described it as shocking in its unapologetic bigotry. Adding to the horror is the reporting that Vice President J.D. Vance banged the table in encouragement as Trump spewed his abhorrent vitriol. My horror soon metabolized into a painful feeling of grief, more acute than the generalized grief I and so many of us have been carrying around now for months, even years. As I asked myself why was this landing so hard? I remembered the time I spent with a young man, originally from Somalia, a refugee who came to Massachusetts as a teenager and whom I met at an event my home church hosted in 2017 to celebrate World Refugee Day. Boya Farah was a budding young writer at the time, working on a memoir about his experiences coming to terms with the reality of racism in the country that he now calls home. It was published in 2022 by HarperCollins to considerable acclaim. I recalled Boya's kindness and gentle demeanor, even as he spoke with force and conviction. I recalled the beauty of his language, his uniquely evocative turns of phrase, and vividly descriptive details of his experiences coming of age in a desolate Kenyan refugee camp, his recollection of his first sweet taste of a frosted Dunkin' Donut upon arriving in our neighboring suburb of Bedford, where he graduated from the public high school. Boya told us during that talk that Somalians understand their country as a nation of poets, and he proved that true that day. As I recalled that event in my grief, I wondered how the headlines were landing in Boya's body and spirit, and I felt sick. Sometimes in the beauty of the morning light, in the comfort and peace of my home and the relative stability of my family and work life, I still forget for moments at a time what's happening in our world, to the human society grounded in principles of freedom, democracy, justice, and equality that we had been striving to build and perfect, far from perfectly, far too slowly, but even still, there'd been progress. These days, it's impossible to deny the unraveling of that progress and the real-life horror that this unraveling is inflicting on marginalized and targeted communities in our midst, especially Black and brown immigrants striving to live, work, raise families, and contribute to our shared neighborhoods, businesses, and institutions, realities that Regina gave such clear examples of in her sharing with us. So what am I to do with this grief? And what are we to do? Because I know that you share it with me. In her book, Active Hope, that she co-authored with Chris Johnston, Joanna Macy outlines 3 potential responses to our grief over this planetary and societal breakdown. Macy and Johnston contend that there are 3 stories being enacted in our time, and we get to choose which story we will invest our energy in. They call the first story business as usual. It's a story based on denial. According to this story, there is little need to change the way we live. The central plot of business as usual is about, quote, getting ahead, economically speaking, taking care of me and mine with little regard for the consequences imposed on the planet and wider civilization. The second story they outline, they call the Great Unraveling. And it draws attention to the disasters that business as usual is taking us toward, as well as those it has already brought about. It's an account of the collapse of ecological and social systems. And then there's the third story that they call the Great Turning. According to Macy and Johnston, the Great Turning is held and embodied by those who know the first story, business as usual, is leading us to catastrophe, and who refuse to let the second story, the Great Unraveling, have the last word. The Great Turning is a story about the epochal transition from an industrial society committed to economic growth to a life-sustaining society committed to the healing and recovery of our world. The central plot is finding and offering our gifts of active hope to that unfolding story, the Great Turning, which they contend is well underway. I like to think that I am an active participant in the third story, the Great Turning, that I'm finding and offering my gifts, my energy, my spiritual resources, my time, my courage, my abilities to the movement to create a new world order centered on love and healing. Sometimes I do live that story, but sometimes I fall into business as usual. I put my head down, look away from the big picture, and get caught up in old imperatives that taught me about getting ahead and taking care of my own. Other times, like last Wednesday morning, I wallow in the second story, the Great Unraveling. I lament, feel sick, fret, worry, and get stuck in the overwhelm of it all. I suspect it is impossible, as limited mortal human beings, for any one of us to perfectly and completely embody the story of the Great Turning. But we can try, and we can try again, and we can commit, and we can recommit. As people of progressive religious vision, we must try and try again, even when the odds seem stark. Because what are the odds that any singular, minuscule pine nut or mustard seed, smaller than a freckle on my hand, will settle into a nurturing place in the earth, germinate, sprout, survive, and grow into that bountiful shrub or tree that gives shelter, loving shelter, to God's creatures? I don't think the odds are actually with the seed if you do the math. Still, there is hope in that seed. Hope that makes the possibilities of goodness real, as we all knew how to share so abundantly in our Time for All Ages. There is hope in the seed, not a passive hope that asks nothing, not even a crumb of us, like that feathered thing in Emily Dickinson's poem, but rather a hope that calls out to us to do what part we can to sow the seed in the field, to give it light and water and tending, that it needs to increase its chances of growing into the fullness of the kingdom of God on earth, the beloved community of collective flourishing. What is the good of a hope that sings a song of comfort but doesn't ask a crumb of us? The danger of such a passive form of hope is that it comforts us just enough to allow us to look away from the threats and carry on with business as usual, or numbs the symptoms of grief and pain we experience when we confront the truth of the great unraveling, so that we remain mired in a muted but helpless despair. I don't know. I think Emily Dickinson might have been thinking something along those lines. Does it really feel good or gratifying or right to be someone who doesn't have a crumb to give, to make hope real in the world, to set hope free in the world? What happens when we give the bird the crumb, or better yet, our collective feast of crumbs? Maybe we give the bird the strength it needs to take its song of hope out of the confines of our inner souls into the world, to perch in the branches of that mustard tree or pine tree and offer its song to the beloved community of all beings. Alternatively to that concept of a passive hope, active hope inspires, motivates, and moves us towards new ways of acting in the world that bring us closer to our longed-for vision. The song of hope reminds us that greed and cruelty are not inevitable, that love, compassion, generosity, and mercy are real and at hand and in us to give. Reminds us that we can cultivate the world order that we've been dreaming of since Jesus preached it, and before, and still, by sowing the seeds of possibility harvested from within our beings and sowing them out in the world. The crumbs, the seeds of kindness, creativity, ingenuity, beauty, healing, solidarity, mutual aid, and love that are abundant in every human soul, but need to be sown and nurtured in the world to grow to their full potential. What gifts of active hope do you bring to the great turning? Even if you think you don't have any, I promise that you do. And it's best that we get comfortable with naming and celebrating the gifts you have to give, we have to give. This is not a time for modesty. Our world urgently needs our gifts, urgently needs us to be givers more than it needs consumers and extractors and competitors. Joanna Macy was an environmental activist and deep ecologist, and her teachings and activism centered on the crisis of climate change and inspired healing responses. Yet her teachings are every bit as relevant for the intersectional social crises of our time. It's becoming increasingly clear, as she knew, that they are all connected. They all stem from a worldview that prizes competition as a path to individual and tribal prosperity, and that increasingly justifies strategies of greed, extraction, and exploitation that are destroying the sustainability of the planet for countless forms of life, including humans, as well as the social structures we need to thrive and to love this good life. The Great Turning is about environmental sustainability and also about social healing. When we turn toward an ethic of healing and sustainability, we prize strategies grounded in compassion, inclusion, care, courage, and shared well-being. Strategies that move us from a worldview centered on competition to one centered on collective flourishing. You and we are already giving our gifts of active hope to hasten the story of the Great Turning. You are already doing it. I see as much in your acts of generosity and care to one another, in your very presence here to be a community of mutual care and love. I see it in your commitments to racial healing, immigration justice, LGBTQ inclusion, and resisting authoritarianism. Let's keep going. We can't let them wear us down or let hate win. Let's keep sowing the seeds of hope tucked away in our hearts and souls so that they can grow in the light of the world. When the so-called leaders occupying the highest halls of power in our nation unleash, justify, and fuel flames of hate, cruelty, and division to secure their own power and wealth, we must sing our song of love and belonging in word and deed out in the world. If you're not sure what part you can play, what humble but meaningful crumbs you have to give, your social action leaders can connect you to opportunities to create a welcoming culture of belonging within our walls at First Parish and beyond our walls, to show up in love and courage for our migrant neighbors at the ICE facility in Burlington, at Hanscom, and right outside the doors of our sanctuary. Talk to Regina and her peers in the Immigration Justice Task Force, to Fred and the leaders of Reclaim Our Democracy, to our First Parish Pride community, and so many more that are active right here. And during the third week of Advent, from December 14th through December 21st, we have a special opportunity. We're going to be hosting a temporary outdoor art installation in the tradition of Christian nativity scenes that use the motif of road signs to draw attention to the issue of immigrant justice. This is a joint initiative, a partnership of 4 neighboring UU congregations, the First Parishes in Lexington, Lincoln, Concord, and Bedford. On December 18th, a week from Thursday at 4 p.m., you are invited to join members of the Immigration Justice Task Force, your ministers, other local clergy, friends, and neighbors for a vigil on our grounds around the art installation. We will deflect the hateful headlines with prayers and songs of love and hospitality. We will share ways to get involved in directly supporting detained and targeted immigrants in our own communities. Collectively, we will offer up the seeds and crumbs of love, resistance, strength, commitment, compassion, and kindness that give life to the great hope of the Great Turning. No matter how small or seemingly humble, taken together, our offerings, our little seeds, have the potential and the promise to change the world. May we make it so with our active hope. And let's sing a song of hope together now. I think we could use a song. Please rise and embody your spirit. For number 346, come sing a song with me. Please be seated to receive these words from the late Joanna Macy on active hope. Active hope is not wishful thinking. Active hope is not waiting to be rescued by some savior. Active hope is waking up to the beauty of life on whose behalf we can act. We belong to this world. The web of life is calling us forth at this time. We've come a long way and are here to play our part. With active hope, we realize that there are adventures in store, strengths to discover, and comrades to link arms with. Active hope is a readiness to discover the strengths in ourselves and in others, a readiness to discover the reasons for hope and the occasions for love, a readiness to discover the size and strength of our hearts, our quickness of mind, our steadiness of purpose, our own authority, our love for life, the liveliness of our curiosity, the unsuspected deep well of patience and diligence, the keenness of our senses, and our capacity to lead. None of this can be discovered in an armchair or without risk. In the spirit of that active hope, please rise once again in body or spirit to give and receive our traditional benediction. Go out into the world in peace. Have courage. Hold on to what is good. Return to no person evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted. Support the weak. Help the suffering. Honor all beings. Now please be seated to enjoy the postlude with our deep gratitude for the gifts of the Lincoln Ringers.